brought to my attention when I was looking over the news that President Trump was warned prior to sending and doing an attack on Iran, that Iran had warned him if there was an attack on Iran from the United States, that he would release sleeper cells in the United States, or activate, should I say, sleeper cells in the United States. Now, for those that do not know what a sleeper cell is, a sleeper cell is a person that portrays to be a regular person with no special training, or just look like a regular old Joe Blow or a regular Jane Doe, and go about their regular lives in various different countries. But when they're activated, they are basically assassins. And from what they're saying, that he knew of this warning prior to attacking Iran. And not only did he not talk with Congress to get this approved, he didn't feel the need to warn the American people of this, which was, I did a video about repercussions of what could happen. And in my video, I talked about sleeper cells. Didn't talk much in detail about them, but I kind of breezed over them. Well, here it is. The fact that, and there's so much information that's coming out. Officials are talking about it. They're making it be known to the public, and I know they're doing it to make people aware of what's going on, so that way they can be an alert. So when we got that high alert for the United States, that's kind of what that was. It was so that people can be cautious of their surroundings, so that people will be aware of what's going on. But the thing about sleeper cells is they just react out of nowhere. So you could be in a grocery store and something happened where either boom, it's gone. You could be at the church and somebody come in here and spray it up. You could be at the zoo having fun with your family, and next thing you know, there's something going on. Typically, it probably would happen in large gatherings, or it could simply just be random. You know, you just don't know. And that's just the realization of it. You don't know who it is. A sleeper could be a friend. It could be a coworker. It could be what appears to be a homeless person on the street. It could be a business person. It could be absolutely anybody. So, wow. I did this video to inform, because I was actually on another content creators page, and I was reading some of the comments, and one of the questions was, what is a sleeper cell? Like, people was like clueless as to what a sleeper cell actually really was. So I figured I would inform the people, my community, what it is. And hopefully this does not cause massive panic around everybody, because you don't want to do something thinking that someone is a sleeper cell. But at the same time, you don't want to be naive or unaware or not cautious of your surroundings. Like I said before, woe to all of us. And pray and ask for God to help us all, because decisions have been made and things are happening. Repercussions of these actions are starting to happen. So far, I haven't heard of any actual attacks from anybody, but as time goes on,
The United States and its people are on high alert today after Iran made a chilling threat to unleash sleeper cells in retaliation to the attack by America on Iran's nuclear sites.
من هدف مشروع ایران هستند. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا شما شروع کردید و ما تمومش خواهیم کرد.
Iran then doubled down, claiming they are well within their rights to retaliate under the UN's Charter Self-Defense Clause.
The U.S. act of aggression against Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities constitutes not only a flagrant breach of the UN Charter, especially the prohibition of the use of force under Article 2, Paragraph 4, and the obligation to respect the state's territorial integrity and sovereignty, but also a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231. It cannot be emphasized enough how much of a devastating blow that the U.S., a permanent member of the Security Council, has dealt to the global non-proliferation regime. The Islamic Republic of Iran reminds the United Nations, the Security Council, the UN Secretary General, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and other relevant international bodies of their duty and responsibility to take urgent and decisive action in response to this breach of international law. Silence in the face of such blatant aggression will plunge the world into an unprecedented level of danger and chaos.
NBC went on to reveal that Trump was aware of the threat of sleeper cell activation before the strikes on Iran, but continued anyway. They said Iran sent a communique to Trump in the days before last night's strike on its nuclear facilities, threatening to activate sleeper cell terror inside the United States if it were attacked. The message got to Trump through an intermediary at the Group of Seven summit in Canada last week, which Trump left early June 16 to consider his options amid the conflict between Israel and Iran, according to sources who include 2 US officials and a person with knowledge of the threat. But threats of homegrown retaliation are not affecting Donald Trump, with the president only reacting with more strength and stronger threats against Iran. He said, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. And despite Trump's tough talking, many Americans are frightened at the threat of sleeper cell activation, which Tom Homan brutally blames on Joe Biden.
Can you assess that issue, particularly how many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol. And you compare that to the Trump administration, zero, right? Zero releases. And right now, because of President Trump's leadership, we have the most secure border in my lifetime, most secure border in the history of this nation. So we have a secure border. So that was President Trump's big win on securing this nation. So we're not releasing people in this country, especially when aliens aren't crossing that border undetected. But under Joe Biden, we had over 10 million people cross that border. But my biggest concern from day one, beyond the fentanyl, beyond the sex trafficking women and children, were the 2 million known gotaways. Over 2 million people crossed that border. We don't know who they are, where they came from, because they got away, because Border Patrol was so overwhelmed with the humanitarian crisis that Biden created, that over 2 million people crossed the border and got away. That is my biggest concern, and that's what created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen.
Commentator Valentina Gomez agreed.
Joe Biden and his administration allowed thousands of terrorists into American soil. I hope I'm wrong, but it is a matter of time until Iran activates sleeper cells in America. Stay armed, stay vigilant, and neutralize any threats before you get neutralized.
Also saying sleeper cells wouldn't be a thing if Democrats didn't open our border for 4 years. But Vice President J.D. Vance assured Americans the U.S. has the capability to ward off any retaliatory attacks by Iran.
What we're prepared for is if they attack us in a maximal direction, first of all, we've got maximum defensive posture. I think that we're going to be able to defend as many of our people as possible. And of course, I'd encourage Americans to pray for our guys in the Middle East because, yes, they are under a significant amount of duress and a significant amount of threat right now. But then, of course, John, if the Iranians attack us, they're going to be met with overwhelming force. And I don't think the president could be clear about this. If you look at what we did yesterday, John, we did not attack the nation of Iran. We did not attack any civilian targets. We didn't even attack military targets outside of the 3 nuclear weapons facilities that we thought were important to accomplish our goal of preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So how Iran responds, I think, is ultimately the ball is in their court. But if you look at what we did, it was very precise, very narrowly tailored to our objective. And if the Iranians decide to expand this, then that's ultimately their decision, and the President of the United States will respond in kind.
Online commentators applauded Vance's measured response, saying, America thanks your perseverance to keep us safe. It was like borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor, except instead of a quick knock on the door, you sent a fleet of stealth bombers, dropped bombs the size of washing machines, and then casually walked back home without even stopping for a chat. This captures the absurdity and understatement of describing a complex military operation as trivial and risk-free, correct?
And I am just so sick and tired of them constantly blaming Joe Biden for everything because all this is not his fault. He didn't make you go over there and bomb somebody's facility without getting permission for Congress. Let's stop passing the blame and just deal with the facts and deal with the issues at hand. We need to get this under control. We need to make sure the American people can be safe. But right now, we're all about as vulnerable as they come.
U.S. officials and a person with knowledge of the threat. We also now learn that the White House did not respond to multiple requests for comment. That's very scary. And the Department of Homeland Security, led by Kristi Noem, said Iran conflict is causing a heightened threat environment in the United States. They went on to say if Iranian leadership issued a religious ruling calling for retaliatory violence against targets in the homeland, it also said Iran could launch cyber attacks on U.S. networks and target current and former U.S. government officials. I don't know about you, but I'm actually feeling quite safe knowing that this child here, who is 22 years old, is in charge of making sure terrorism is prevented in our country. And his only job previously was working at a grocery store. These are the types of people working in Trump's administration. And as one counterterrorism researcher put it, maybe he's a wonder kid, maybe he's Doogie Howser and has everything at 21 years old or whatever he is to leave the office, but that's not likely the case. It sounds like putting the intern in charge. Yes, and back to this NBC story, J.D. Vance gave a preview of what they are going to say when and if terrorism happens in this country or if something happens overseas. One point of concern, J.D. Vance says, is a lack of full accounting of those who may have entered the country during Joe Biden's term without proper vetting. Quote, we know that some of those people were on a terrorism watch list. Okay, great. And Fox News ran with it because now they're talking to someone who said that Biden's open border policies could be the way that sleeper cells were allowed into the United States. They're really just laying this all out, aren't they?
The challenge that the United States has after a very long period of time where, frankly, we had an open border and tens of millions of people came across, and we don't know who they are, where they came from, what their capabilities are, their intentions. This has created a situation where we are vulnerable as a country. President Trump has decided that
we got to do better. We have to do better as far as this government. We just have to. And at this point, it just really seems like Congress really needs to step in. They need to step in and do what's right, because certain things weren't done the right way and certain things just shouldn't have happened the way they happened. And now we're all in jeopardy of having to have to pay for that. You know, pray for our troops, pray for the people that supposed to be protecting us. And even pray for the ones that are over there, because outside of the government, people don't want to go through this. Y'all, it's just, what could we do? But stay vigilant. As always, be your brothers and your sisters' keeper. Keep God first. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, y'all. Toodles.